Welcome to the Busy Girl's Guide to the Bible podcast. I'm Andrea, and this podcast is my own ramblings and lessons that I have learned in trying to balance being a Christian, a wife, a mom, a writer, a business owner, a photographer, a blogger, a friend, a daughter, a sister, and the 1 million other things that make me me. What I want so badly is to teach other women that the Bible doesn't have to be confusing or frustrating or even over your head. I want to teach you the ways that I have learned to carve out time not only to get into the Bible, but to apply it, make sense of it, and get practical takeaways in everyday life. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for listening. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button to the Busy Girl's Guide to the Bible podcast. I'm so excited to share with you each week, and I just thank you so much for being here. This is so much fun, and I hope that you guys are enjoying it and getting something out of it, and that you're looking forward to coming back here every single week to hear more. This week, I want to talk about the dreams and visions that we have in our hearts that, you know, we might have carried them around for a while, but maybe they're starting to surface or bubble up, or maybe they're super deep inside of you and you haven't even been able to admit them to yourself. So I want to pull that out of you today. It's something that is really important to me because what you want matters. The dreams and visions and goals that you have in your heart, God put them there for a reason, because there's some part of His story that He wants to tell through you. So, you know, when I first, as a teenager, my goal was to get married and have babies, and that was perfect and great and wonderful. And I married the boy that I loved, and I have these beautiful babies now. But I found very quickly after the twins were born that I really was craving something else, that I needed something. And actually, I can look back and see when our daughter was, 2, I was really craving something. I wanted something different. And I did dabble in women's ministry for just a little bit, but we were so engrossed in miscarriages and fertility treatments that it really took a backseat for a long time, because I didn't have the energy to pour into that when I was trying so desperately to have babies. So I think as I've gotten older and our kids have gotten older, those kinds of things that have been inside of me have just begun to bubble out more. And this podcast is evidence of that for sure. The other thing too that has struck me so much in dealing with women and listening to them talk about their lives is that so many of you don't have a big dream that you are striving for, that you're going after. And I realize, you know, I'm in the same boat with a lot of you where we have little kids and they're still at home. But I think there's so much value in really digging deep and asking God, what is it that you want for my life beyond just being in my home and being a homemaker and a mom and a wife? How can I go out and change the world for you? What does that look like? And I think it's kind of sad to me that so many people don't have that dream and that vision and that goal. And so I want so badly to share what I have done and then how I've implemented different things to get there. But I want to tell you a backstory first, because I think it's so important to know, you know, women were not always treated well. I don't know if you know that. They're kind of not treated well today in a lot of cultures. And so I want you to open your Bible to Luke 8, because I want to give you a little bit of backstory about women and their place in society. So one thing that I have learned from my husband is how to read the Bible correctly. I didn't grow up learning how to, you know, learn about the history and the context and the group of people that the Bible was, or the letters were written to. And so it was really, really cool when I started to really dive into the Bible, and I would read these passages and I would read the commentary, and my husband would say, okay, but you realize Think about the culture. Think about the context. Think about who Paul or whoever is writing that letter to. Think about what is going on in their society. Not everything in there is going to make sense in our modern day world. Women, not adorning themselves. I mean, I'm sitting here with earrings on and I've got fake eyelashes on. So, some things are cultural, some things are completely applicable to everyday life. So just remember that when you're reading, thousands of years ago, this book was written by men in the Middle East. So the treatment of women at that time in that area of the world was, I would dare to say, at an all-time low. I mean, women were stoned in the street for sinning. You couldn't talk to women in the street. You couldn't talk to them when they were on their period. Ladies, I realize a lot of times we don't want to talk to people when we're on our period. However, they were viewed as unclean. How freaking offensive is that? It's so rude. They were told to be quiet, unseen, and pretty much they were doormats. So if you look farther back, you see in 1 Timothy 2, it's telling women not to get up and preach. I don't know about you, but there's this woman named Joyce Meyer who is kind of a big deal. She's a lady and she's a preacher. Okay, so if you take all of that apart, you see Paul is speaking to a certain group of people in a certain era. He is speaking to women in the Middle East 2,000 years ago. And he's just basically saying like, hey, use your brain. Like, you can't get up and speak in front of men, you'll be stoned. So think about all of that. Think about who is being addressed here, what region, and the culture. All of that comes into play. So then in Luke 8, Jesus is in town. He is going about doing his preaching with his dudes, and he is walking through a crowd, and he is speaking to women. An unclean woman touches him and is made well. Oh, and by the way, he's also having a dinner party at Mary and Martha's house. Remember that? He loved women. He came and showed these chauvinistic men that women are important and they had much more to offer than just being baby machines, basically. Mary Magdalene was healed after being possessed by 7 demons. I mean, that's amazing. And she was part of his posse. She was part of his, who hung out with Jesus all the time. So in verse 43, he's on his way preaching, doing Jesus things, and a woman touches the hem of his robe, and he actually feels the power go out of him and into her. And he says, "Who touched me?" And I don't know if you know this, but she had been bleeding. Hemorrhaging is the word in the Bible, for 12 years. So we complain about 5 days, but this woman has been bleeding for 12 years. And what's crazy to me is that he doesn't freak out. He doesn't turn and say, "You're a low-class citizen, get away from me." He uses her faith as an example to a crowd full of men. "Your faith has healed you, girl. Get up and throw your maxi pads away." In front of thousands of men. That's huge to me. He's showing them multiple things here. There's so many layers here. He's showing that he loves women, that they are valuable, that they are not second-class citizens. Do you know a man that could bleed for 12 years and not complain? I don't think so. It's pretty amazing that he was able to use this woman in a crowd of men to call out her faith and to call out who she is and use her as an example. Now, with that being said, so Jesus admits in front of all of these men, or points out rather, that she's a rock star. But how many times in your life have you felt less than, or worthless, or directionless, or like you've lost your identity? I'm guessing that it's been a lot of times. I'm guessing that there are so many things in our lives, so many plates that we have spinning, that we feel like we have to keep them spinning, but we're not allowed to pursue the things that God has put in our hearts because we have to keep the laundry up. We have to make the lunches. We have to keep our husband happy. We have to spend enough time with our kids. We have to be open with them. We have to put down the electronics, all of the things that are required of us. And then we're supposed to dream. And I don't know about you, but I have a lot of things inside of me that I want to share with the world. I tell my girlfriends all the time, and I'm going to say it right now, but I wake up and I think I want to change the world today. And that's terrifying and vulnerable. And I have these dreams that scare me. And I mean, I sat in a cafe the other day with a girlfriend talking about my hopes and my dreams. And immediately I had a thought come in, and I know that it was the enemy saying, girl, you can't do anything. You are sitting in Colorado at some cafe. You're not going to do anything with your life. You are not going to affect anyone with any of the decisions that you make. And for a minute, I completely accepted it, and I kind of wallowed. I let her keep talking, but I sat there feeling utterly defeated and like, man, I'm nobody. How could I do anything? How could God use me? I am no one. I think that's where the lie comes into, that we as women are supposed to do one thing and be one thing, and we're supposed to be amazing at it. And maybe you are a mom and you're killing it with like a perfectly laid out pantry and healthy snacks, and you never scream at your kids. And that's really great for you. But what I have found, and what was really, really hard to admit, is that I don't find all of my worth and all of my value in being a mom. And I remember thinking that, oh gosh, it was probably 6 months after the boys were born. And I just thought, well, you are the worst. You are absolute scum. How could you not be so utterly happy with being a mom? You wanted to be a stay-at-home mom your whole life, and here you are, and you are discontented. And I shamed myself for a long time about that, because I just thought, gosh, this is all I wanted was to be a perfect mom. And here I was with these perfect babies, and I was not a perfect mom. I wanted something else in my life that would change the world. And I realize that sounds so crazy and like the biggest vague dream, but that was what I wanted. I wanted something that I did outside of my home to be the thing that made me me. So it started when our daughter was 2 months old. I had always wanted to be a photographer, and I didn't do it when I was younger because it wasn't really a practical, like I needed to go to college. That worked out. I ended up dropping out, but I had always had an affinity for photography. And I thought, this is something that I think I could really be good at. And so when Maddie was 2 months old, I thought, well, this is a great time to start a new business. And so I was self-taught. I still do it now, and I really enjoy it, but it's not the thing. It wasn't the thing. I did it for a couple years, and I loved it. I love photographing families. That's totally my thing. I really enjoyed the creative aspect of it, but I was still searching for something. It wasn't the thing that I was like, yes, this is exactly what God has placed in my heart. I was so grateful that I had it under my belt, and that it's something that I can carry with me for the rest of my life. I can always, in some capacity, be a photographer. And I love that so much, but it didn't end up being the thing. I knew that I was made for more than wiping butts in the name of Jesus and nursing. There was something in me. I wanted to reach other women. I wanted to add value to the world. And so that turned into, from photography, I went into network marketing. and hustling with, 1,400 people. And that was amazing. And talking to people about healthy living and changing their lifestyle. But then in October, I saw God completely change my direction with even just how I was leading that team and making it more ministry based. And my dreams have changed and evolved over the years so much, but the mission that I have has not, and that is growth. I want to grow so big and so much that you guys don't recognize the woman that I am in 10 years. I want to be so full of who God called me to be that it inspires you to do the same. I want to be in a room. I want you to be in a room with me and feel compelled to jump in and change the world with me. That is my biggest dream, is that you feel like when you listen to me, you're like, yes, I want to go take on the world. I want to go change the world with that girl because I see Jesus all over her. There are a couple things that you need to know about your dreams and about what God is calling you to do. So just practical things. First of all, they're going to change and evolve and grow. That comes with experience and maturity and life. That's a given. My dreams, from when I was an 18-year-old are entirely different than they are now. Like I said, I wanted to be married and have babies. At that time, I was struggling so badly with anxiety disorder that I just wanted a day, just an hour where I felt at peace and like I wasn't struggling, and I didn't want to be sweaty and clammy all the time. I wanted something so simplistic at that point. And then a few years later, I want babies so badly, and I'm struggling to keep a pregnancy. I'm battling through a 5th miscarriage. And on top of that, my anxiety actually hit an all-time high. And I truly thought at one point they would have to commit me because I was just so wrapped around the axle. I could not get out of it. So my dreams changed, over time, and the message has always been the same, like I said. But now, on the other side of those things, and believe me, there will be more things, but it's changed so much because before it was get me out of this, help me. And now what I want to do is be able to be a voice and a safe place for women who are in the same position that I was and dealing with crappy relationships or eating disorders on either side of the spectrum, dealing with family members or whatever it is. I want all of that, all of those things that made no sense at the time, that felt like they had nothing to do with anything. Those are the things that I want God to use. And those are the things in your life that He wants to use as well. So don't feel like just because your dream is this right now and in a year it might change, or you've even watched over the years how it's evolved and changed. All of those things are layers. They're just layers that get you to where you're supposed to be, and they all tell part of your story. Don't feel like anything is going to go to waste, because that's not true. That's the enemy, and he's the worst. The second thing I want you to know is I want you to look back in the Bible and see the mess of human beings that God used to speak to us. I mean, those are the people that we read about in the Bible, and they were completely unqualified and complete disasters. And yet they're the people that God saw fit to use. He didn't use the people who had the perfect Instagram highlight reel. He used the people who, were drunk in the street, and Mary Magdalene was possessed by 7 demons. Like, all these people had a lot of issues. And those are the examples that we have of God's grace. So in the midst of your worst, crappiest mom moment, God can use that, and He can bless other people with that. And even if it's just you get to experience His grace. That's part of your story. That's part of something that only you can have. And the third thing I want to tell you is that you have to actively pursue what God wants for you and the dreams that He's placed in your heart. I have so many friends. We've been talking about this a lot lately, and I get to talk to this group of women this month. Yes, this month, about this topic and actual practical steps that we can take. And the biggest one that you can take is asking God to direct your steps and asking Him what the heck He wants from you and what the heck you can do to make a difference. And what part of the story are you going to tell? I would say that writing down, I'm a list person, so writing down things that you're good at, things that you enjoy, things that are important to you. Those are the kinds of things that are going to likely be part of what God is going to have you do. He gave you those gifts and talents and interests for a reason. He's not going to ask you to do something that you don't enjoy or that doesn't speak to you or doesn't move you. He wants to use the talents that you have specifically to move things, to change things, to move people. So write them down, make a list, start this brainstorming kind of dream page in your journal. Get a journal if you don't have one. I am not a journaler, never have been, always hated it. I would rather type. But in the last year, I have really enjoyed writing all of those things down because I get to see, one, when God answers prayer and actually write it out. Hey, this was answered. And secondly, I want to build on these layers that I have. I want to change different things in my story. And so I get to go back and look and say, okay, this is what I wanted to do here. This is what I wanted to do here. And this is how I can move forward from that thing. So I would highly encourage you, please write it down, because I think it's going to be really valuable to you to see, to actually put it on paper what you want to do, or at least if you feel like you don't have your dream right now, you can start somewhere. You can start at square one with God and just say, okay, these are my gifts and talents. These are the things that you have given me. Where do I go from here? What are the ministry opportunities that I have? Because you're an amazing woman and you can do whatever you want. We live in the best time right now for women because we get to have it all. We get to be a wife and a mom and then have something outside of the home that changes the world. And that is incredible. We are so blessed to live in a culture and a time that we get to have it all. The last thing that I want you to really think about is surrounding yourself with women who are passionate and excited and who have a clear dream and a clear goal and a clear vision for their life. If you get around those people, you cannot help but glean from them. It's infectious. Whatever it is that they are doing, their passion will affect you and it will spur you on and make you want to figure out what it is that God wants for your life. And whatever that dream is that He has in your heart, those are the kinds of women who are going to pull that out of you. I have a good friend who is in the same boat, kind of, where she really doesn't know what the dream is. And so she's going on a search to figure it out, to figure out what it is that she loves, what it is that she's good at. And she's doing something every single day to try and pull that out of her heart. This is how she is going to find out exactly what her dream is, because she's actively seeking it. And then I'll send her a text and say, hey, what did you do today that is getting you towards your goal, that's getting you towards your dream? So be sure when you find those women, ask them if they will keep you accountable. Ask them if they will ask you questions to make sure that you're on the right track and that you are actively working and actively seeking out the dream that God has for you, because those are the kinds of people that you need in your life to keep you going when you are starting to feel like, ugh, I don't want to do this. I don't have a dream. I don't have a goal. What's the point? Those kind of people are the ones that are going to keep you going and come alongside you. And they're going to be your biggest cheerleaders when you figure it out and you start running towards your goal. Thank you guys so much for joining me again this week. I hope that you're enjoying these. And if you are, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Let me know what you want to hear, what you want to talk about. This has been the biggest dream come true, and I'm so excited to be here every week with you guys. I will see you next week on the Busy Girls Guide to the Bible podcast.